Emma Parker learned something about first nights long before she lived through this one. They were never quiet. Even when nothing happened, everything happened inside you. The apartment felt too clean, too empty, like it had never been lived in, and wasn't sure it wanted to be. Emma stood near the window with her arms crossed, watching the rain slide down the glass. Portland lights glowed below, soft and distant, like a city trying not to interrupt her thoughts. She had imagined this moment for months, her first night alone, her first night free, but now that it was here, it felt heavier than she expected. The boxes were stacked along the wall, half open, half forgotten. Her clothes lay folded on the chair, untouched. The bed looked too wide for one person. Every object in the room felt like it was waiting for her to decide who she was going to be now. Earlier that day, she had driven for hours, her car packed tight with memories she couldn't leave behind. The road had stretched endlessly, mile after mile, giving her too much time to think. She remembered how many times she had almost turned back. How many times fear had whispered that staying would be easier than starting over. But staying had broken her. Slowly the marriage hadn't. Ended with shouting or slammed doors. It ended with silence, with dinners eaten alone, with promises forgotten, with love that became polite and distant. Emma had learned how lonely it felt to share a bed with someone who no longer saw you. When she finally pulled into the apartment complex, her hands were shaking. She told herself it was from the long drive. She told herself a lot of things that day. That was when Daniel Brooks appeared. He had been coming up the stairs, carrying groceries, when he saw her struggling with a box too big for her arms. He didn't rush in or act like a hero. He simply asked if she wanted help. His voice was calm, steady, like he had nowhere else to be. She remembered how surprised she felt when she said yes. They carried boxes together, up the stairs, down the narrow hall. Daniel moved carefully, as if he didn't want to disturb her space. He asked where things should go and waited for her answer. It was a small kindness, but it stayed with her. They talked without trying about where she moved from, about how Portland rain felt different from other rain, about how strange new places always felt quiet at first. Daniel listened more than he spoke. When he did speak, his words were simple and honest. When the last box was set down, Emma had expected him to leave. Instead, they stood in the doorway, the moment stretching longer than necessary. She felt a pull she didn't understand, something warm and steady. It scared her more than loneliness ever had. She thanked him. He smiled, a soft smile that didn't ask for anything. "If you need anything," he said, "just knock." Hours later, that memory replayed in her mind as the rain continued to fall. Emma pressed her forehead against the window and closed her eyes. She told herself she was tired. She told herself she needed sleep, but her heart refused to slow. She moved through the apartment, touching the walls, the counter, the back of the couch, as if making sure it was real. This was hers. No one else's voice filled these rooms. No one else's mood decided how the night would feel. Still, the quiet pressed in. She sat on the bed and pulled her knees close to her chest. The sound of rain turned into a steady rhythm, and with it came the thoughts she had been pushing away. What if she had made a mistake? What if starting over was just another way to be alone? Her phone buzzed on the mattress beside her. The sound startled her. She stared at the screen, unsure if she wanted to see who it was. When she picked it up and saw Daniel's name, her breath caught. Just wanted to check in the message. Read, "First nights can be hard." Emma read it twice. There was nothing bold about it, nothing demanding. Just a quiet understanding that felt too accurate. She typed a reply, then erased it. Typed again, erased it again. Her fingers hovered. As doubt crept in, she had promised herself she wouldn't lean on anyone. She had promised herself she would be strong, but strength, she realized, didn't mean being alone all the time. She set the phone down without replying and lay back on the bed. The ceiling light cast soft shadows across the room. Her chest rose and fell slowly, but her thoughts ran fast. She thought about how long it had been since someone checked on her just because they cared. Another buzz. "If you need company," Daniel wrote, "or just a voice, my door's open." Emma sat up, her heart beat loud in her ears as she read the message. This time, she didn't overthink it. She stood, pulled on a sweater, and slipped on her shoes, paused at the door, hand on the handle, fear rising like a wave. She almost stayed inside. Instead, she stepped into the hallway. The hall was quiet, warm light glowing above. Her footsteps echoed softly as she walked to Daniel's door. Each step felt like a choice, small but meaningful. When she knocked, it sounded louder. Then she meant it to. The door opened almost right away. Daniel stood there holding 2 mugs, steam rising from them. He looked like he had been expecting her but hadn't assumed anything. His expression was open, gentle. He stepped aside, giving her room to decide. "Hey," he said. "Hey," she replied, her voice softer than she intended. She followed him. Inside, his apartment looked lived in but simple. A couch, a small table, books stacked neatly by the wall. Nothing flashy. Nothing overwhelming. Felt calm. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, leaving space between them that neither rushed. To close. Daniel handed her a mug. Tea. She wrapped her hands around it, feeling the warmth seep into her fingers. They talked. At first, it was easy things, where she grew up, what her new job was like, how moving always felt harder at night. Daniel shared. Small pieces of his life, too. How he moved to Portland years ago for work. How he liked the quiet. How he learned to be patient with people because everyone carried something unseen. The conversation flowed quickly, naturally. No long pauses, no awkward laughter. Emma felt herself relax in a way she hadn't in years. She laughed once, surprised. By the sound of it, then the silence came. It wasn't heavy, wasn't uncomfortable, simply arrived, like a pause both of them respected. Emma stared into her mug, watching the steam fade. She realized how safe she felt sitting there, not because anything was happening, but because nothing was expected. Daniel shifted slightly, resting his arms on his knees. He looked at her, not too long, not too intense. "Starting over takes courage," he said quietly. Emma nodded. Her throat tightened, but she didn't look away. "I forgot what it felt like," she admitted. "To be this scared." Daniel didn't rush to answer. He nodded as if he understood exactly what she meant. They didn't move closer. They didn't touch. Yet the moment felt full. Emma felt something inside her loosen, something she had been holding tight for too long. After a while, she stood. "I should go," she said, even though part of her didn't want to. Daniel stood too, walking her to the door. He didn't stop. He didn't ask her to stay. He simply opened the door and met her eyes. "Good night, Emma," he said. "Good night," she replied, back in her apartment. The silence felt different, softer, less sharp. Emma slipped off her shoes and sat. On the bed again. The rain had slowed outside, the sound fading into the night. She lay down, pulling the blanket over her, her body tired but her heart awake. This first night hadn't been what she imagined. It hadn't been dramatic or lonely or overwhelming. It had been quiet in a new way. As Emma closed her eyes, she realized something she hadn't expected. Starting over wasn't about erasing the past. It was about letting small moments remind you that you were still here, still feeling, still capable of hope. And this first night, gentle and uncertain, had already changed more than she knew. Emma did not sleep right away. She lay on her back, eyes open, listening to the last drops of rain tap against the window. The apartment no longer felt empty, but it didn't feel full either. It felt awake, like it was breathing with her. Thoughts moved fast, not heavy, not sad, just alive. She kept seeing Daniel's face. Not in a romantic way, not yet. It was the calm in his eyes that stayed with her. The way he had listened without fixing her. The way he had let silence exist without rushing to fill it. For the first time in a long while, Emma did not feel like. She had to protect herself from the night. Morning came softly. Light slipped through the curtains, pale and gentle. Emma woke before the alarm, her body still, her mind already moving. She sat up slowly, taking in the room. The boxes, the chair, the bed, everything was the same, yet something inside her had shifted. She made coffee and stood by the window again. But this time the city looked closer. Real, possible. Later that day, she unpacked fast. Clothes found drawers, books filled shelves. Photos stayed in boxes. She wasn't ready for those yet. She worked with purpose. Like someone building ground beneath their feet. Knock came at the door just after noon. She knew who it was before opening it. Daniel stood there holding a small paper bag. He looked slightly unsure, like he didn't want to cross a line. "I grabbed an extra sandwich," he said. "Thought you might still be unpacking." Emma smiled before she could stop herself. "That was thoughtful," she said, stepping aside. They ate at the small kitchen counter, talking easily. The conversation moved fast, skipping over safe topics and landing on real ones. Past jobs, missed chances. The strange relief of being unknown in a new place. Daniel didn't ask about her marriage. He didn't need to. Emma found herself telling him anyway, not details, just truth. That it had ended slowly, that she had felt invisible, that leaving had hurt, but staying would have hurt more. He listened. He didn't judge. He didn't speak. Until she finished. "Sometimes," he said, "walking away is how you save yourself." Those words stayed with her long after he left. Days passed. Emma settled into her job. New coworkers, new routines. She learned which coffee shop stayed quiet in the afternoons and which park felt safest at dusk. She and Daniel crossed paths often, sometimes planned, sometimes not. Short talks turned into longer ones. Walks turned into dinners. Nothing rushed. Nothing forced. The feeling between them grew quietly, like something strong that didn't need to prove itself. One evening, they sat on a bench by the river, watching the water move steady and sure. The sky was pink and gray, the air cool. Emma felt peaceful, but also alert. She knew moments like this mattered. Daniel broke the silence. "I like you," he said simply. Emma didn't laugh or deflect. She didn't panic. "I like you too," she replied. He nodded, accepting it without pushing for more. That respect touched her deeply. A week later, fear returned. It came suddenly, without warning. Emma woke from a dream where she was back in her old house, calling out to someone who never answered. Her chest felt tight. Her hands shook as she sat up. She wanted to run, to pull away, to remind herself that getting close always came with pain. Instead, she texted Daniel. "Can I see you?" He replied right away. Always they sat on her couch this time. The space felt different now, warmer, lived in. Emma told him about the dream, about the fear that followed her when things felt good. Daniel didn't interrupt. "When you're ready," he said, "I'm here. And if you're not, I'm still here." Something broke open inside her. Then she realized she wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of believing again. Time moved forward. They shared more of themselves. Small habits, old wounds, quiet hopes. They laughed often. They argued once, gently, honestly, and felt closer after. One night, months later, they stood in her doorway after a long evening together. The air felt charged, not rushed, but full. Daniel looked at her, searching her face. "May I?" he asked softly. Emma nodded. The kiss was slow and careful. No urgency, no hunger, just warmth and choice. When it ended, she rested her forehead against his, breathing steady. That night mattered, not because of what happened, but because of what didn't. There was no fear, no regret, no doubt. Later, as they lay side by side, the city quiet outside, Emma stared at the ceiling and smiled. This was not a rescue. This was not a replacement. This was to people choosing to be present, She slept deeply. Weeks turned into seasons. Fall painted the streets gold. Winter arrived gently. Emma felt rooted in a way she hadn't in years. She learned that love didn't have to be loud to be real, that safety could be exciting. That peace could still carry passion. One evening, as snow fell outside, Daniel asked her a question she had once feared. "Do you see a future here?" He asked. Emma looked around her apartment. The shelves, the photos she had finally unpacked, the life she had built. "Yes," she said, "I do." He smiled, not wide, but certain. She thought back to her first night. The rain, the quiet, the message on her phone. She understood now. That night wasn't about loneliness. It was about opening a door. Not just to someone else, but to herself. And she was glad she had knocked.